Please don't forget subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of new daily videos.
I never really knew my great-aunt Bernice. She was a name on Christmas cards, a distant relative tucked away in the sticks. So when her lawyer called informing me I'd inherited her old cabin upstate, I was surprised but also intrigued. My life in the city felt stale, a constant hum of disappointment, and the idea of escaping to a quiet, secluded place was incredibly appealing. I envisioned peace, fresh air, maybe even a little writing. Boy, was I wrong. The cabin was older than dirt, nestled deep within a thick pine forest, miles from the nearest paved road. My phone barely got reception, which I initially welcomed. A true escape. The place was a fixer-upper, and I started with the most obvious tasks, clearing out dusty junk, patching leaks, trying to make it habitable. It was during this phase, about a week in, that I found the cellar. Not the main, easily accessible cellar, but a section underneath the kitchen, sealed off with rough planks and an unsettling layer of fresh concrete over what looked like a much older, crudely built stone archway. It was like someone had tried very hard to hide something, and then someone else tried even harder to make sure it stayed hidden. A cold curiosity, entirely uncharacteristic of me, took hold. I don't know why, but I felt an undeniable urge to open it. Maybe it was the cabin's oppressive silence, or the way the shadows seemed to cling a little too long in the corners of my vision. It took me 3 days with a crowbar and sledgehammer to break through. The air that rushed out when the last slab of concrete finally cracked was stale, earthy, and carried a faint, cloying sweetness I couldn't quite place. Inside, the space was small, barely a crawl space, but deep. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing shelves carved into the earth, mostly empty, save for a few unsettling items. First, a small, ornate music box, rusted solid. I tried to open it, but the mechanism was jammed. Then, tucked behind it, a tarnished silver locket. When I finally pried it open, it held not one but 2 faded, dried flowers pressed almost to powder and a tiny, blurred photograph of a child with unnervingly wide, dark eyes. On the back, in faint, looping script, was a single name, Zaida. Below it, a date, 1912. That night, I started hearing things. Soft scratches like claws on wood from directly below my bed. A faint, almost imperceptible humming, a child's lullaby, distorted and slow, that would stop the moment I held my breath to listen. I tried to call Kirk, my friend back in the city, but the signal would cut out, or the phone would just refuse to dial. I felt profoundly, terrifyingly alone. The next day, I found myself drawn back to the cellar, my hand reaching for the locket almost on its own. It felt warm, radiating a faint pulse against my skin. Deeper in the crawl space, almost entirely buried, I dug out a stack of brittle, yellowed papers. They were children's drawings hastily scribbled in crayon. Most were innocent landscapes or stick figures, but a few stood out. A crude depiction of a monstrous, shadowy figure towering over a small, weeping child. Another showed a house on fire, with tiny, screaming faces peeking from the windows. They were signed simply Z. I started researching Zaida Maguire and the cabin's history using the sputtering internet connection and dusty local archives I found in a box. It wasn't easy. The town records were sparse, and the name Maguire was common in this area a century ago. But what I did find sent a cold dread through me. There were rumors, whispers of a family who once owned this very land, the Maguires, and a troublesome daughter named Zaida. Records indicated she was sent away to an institution in 1913 after a series of incidents involving strange behavior and accusations against her own family. There was also a cryptic local newspaper clipping from 1914 about a fire that consumed the Maguire cabin, this cabin, rebuilt on the same foundation, with no clear cause or survivors listed. The house grew colder, even in the summer heat. Doors I swore I'd closed would stand ajar. Objects would move. One morning I found the music box, which had been jammed, open on my bedside table, playing its discordant, tinny lullaby. It wasn't just humming anymore, it was like a small child unseen was standing inches from my ear, breathing with a frantic, shallow gasp. I felt a constant, heavy weight on my chest, a feeling of eyes on me, even when I was alone. I realized the entity wasn't just in the house. It was the house, or at least inextricably bound to it. It wanted me to find something more, something crucial. I felt like a puppet, my curiosity no longer my own, but a compulsion forced upon me. Back in the root cellar, driven by an invisible hand, I noticed a loose stone in the floor, partially hidden by centuries of dirt. Beneath it, a small, leather-bound journal. It was Zaida's. The entries were childish at first, then spiraled into fragmented, paranoid scrawls. She wrote of Papa's dark moods, Mama's cold eyes, and the man in the walls. She described being locked in the cellar, of whispers guiding her, of being told to do things. The last entry was chilling. They say I'm mad, but the house knows. It showed me how to stop the whispers, how to make them pay. The fire will cleanse. As I read that last line, a sharp crack echoed from the floor above. The cabin groaned, not like old wood settling, but like a living thing in agony. The air grew thick with the scent of smoke, though no fire burned. The child's lullaby shrieked into a discordant cacophony, and I felt a presence, cold and ancient, press against my back. It wasn't just Zaida. It was the man in the walls, the whispers, the house itself, a nexus of pain and vengeance, waiting for someone to finally read its story, to become its new voice, its new conduit. I dropped the journal. The cabin went silent. Too silent. The air cleared, the smoke smell vanished. But the feeling of being watched, of being chosen, has never left. I can't leave. Not really. Every time I try to pack a bag, a deep dread settles, the windows seem to darken, the walls creak menacingly. It's like the house is saying, you know now, and you belong to us. I don't know what it wants from me next, but I know one thing: I'm not alone in this house anymore, and I'm not sure I ever will be again.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to like it. And please do subscribe to support the channel.